most importantly, Holocaust survivors. It is my great honor to welcome you to this annual observance of the International Day of Commemoration in memory of the victims of the Holocaust. My name is Melissa Fleming, and I am Undersecretary General for Global Communications, and we are sincerely grateful to the survivors who will address us on this solemn occasion. We know that sharing your experiences of the Holocaust comes at great cost, and we acknowledge and appreciate the courage it takes to do so. Today, as we begin the observance of the International Day, may I ask you to join me in a moment of silent reflection in remembrance of the victims of the Holocaust. Could I ask those who are able to kindly stand? Thank you. Nearly 20 years ago, the member states of the United Nations came together in this hall and passed a resolution that designated the 27th of January as the International Day of Commemoration in memory of the victims of the Holocaust. This resolution committed the United Nations to Holocaust remembrance and education, and it tasked the United Nations to create and facilitate opportunities for learning and reflection about the Holocaust, to counter anti-Semitism, to counter bigotry, racism, and prejudice. I want to acknowledge the significant contribution of a Holocaust survivor, Rabbi Arthur Schneier, in bringing about this resolution. Dear guests, we meet at a time of great pain, triggered by the abhorrent terror attacks by Hamas on October 7th. At this time, learning and reflection become even more crucial. Learning and reflection form a critical antidote to hatred and division. So it feels especially important that we gather here to reflect on the humanity of the victims of the Holocaust. We must never forget the 6 million Jewish children, women, and men who were annihilated, 2/3 of Europe's pre-war Jewish population. We must remember their lives and the culture that had existed for centuries, which the Holocaust ruptured irrevocably. And the same was true for the life and culture of Roma and Sinti, whom the Nazis persecuted and murdered, murdering some 500,000, a quarter of their population in Europe. But the Nazis did not destroy the extraordinary courage of victims and survivors of the Holocaust. And this we must also never forget. Courage is our theme for today's observance. It is now my honor to welcome Mr. Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, to deliver his remarks.
Excellencies, dear friends, today we honor the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. I am moved and humbled by the presence of Holocaust survivors and their families, joining us both online and in person. Each of you carries the memories of communities lost, lives destroyed or changed beyond recognition, and lives renewed. I thank you for sharing those memories with us and with the world. All of us, leaders and citizens, have a responsibility to listen and to learn from what you have to say and then to act on it by condemning these terrible crimes against our common humanity, by striving to eradicate anti-Semitism, and all forms of bigotry, hatred, and intolerance. And by finding a way forward to a shared, safe and inclusive future for our own family. And this is particularly important in today's dangerous and divided world. And the few short months after Hamas' horrific terror attacks, in which so many innocent Israeli civilians and citizens of other countries were killed. Excellencies and friends, every year on this day, the day of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, we honor the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. We come together in solidarity and sorrow to pay tribute to 6 million Jewish children, women and men murdered in the Holocaust, and we believe the Roman and Sinti. And we mourn the millions of others tortured, stabbed, and killed by the Nazis and their collaborators. And today, in particular, in keeping with this year's theme, we recognize the courage of the victims and the survivors. There are countless stories of bravery and resilience from the Holocaust, from those who resisted the Nazis' brutality, to hard struggle or quiet dignity, to the individuals, families, and communities providing support, solidarity, and even a semblance of normality in the face of humanization, deprivation, and death. And survivors who have had the courage to tell their stories to a world that has not always wanted to listen. Because of bravery shown from the hell of Auschwitz itself, and from across the world ravaged by Nazi ideology and hate. I think of people like Rudolf Friba, a Slovak teenager who was deported to Auschwitz. With Alfred Wetzler, he achieved the extraordinary feat of breaking out of the camp to warn the world of the Nazis' unspeakable crimes. I think of Rosa Robota, a young Polish woman who plotted with others to destroy the crematoria. She was tortured and hanged by the Nazis, never revealing the secrets of the Auschwitz resistance of which she was a part. And I think of those thousands of acts of courage and fortitude, of which we will never know. The parents who contained their terror to comfort the child. The prisoners who risked Nazi wrath to perform small acts of kindness. And the individuals who found the strength to retain their sense of self despite all attempts to demolish it. We remember and revere today all such acts of bravery. Excellencies and friends, the anti-Semitism that fueled the Holocaust did not start with the Nazis, nor did it end with their defeat. The Holocaust was preceded by thousands of years of discrimination, expulsion, exile and extermination, including by my own country, Portugal. Today we are witnessing hate spreading at alarming speed. Online it has moved from the margins to the mainstream. And Holocaust denial and distortion are proliferating. It's up to all of us to defend the truth and to defend our common humanity. Working together, we must combat online lies and hate. We must promote Holocaust education as a critical part of our defense against ignorance, indifference, and intolerance. And crucially, we must listen to survivors, and we must remember that demonization of the other and disdain for diversity is a danger to everyone. That no society is immune to intolerance, and worse, and that bigotry against one group is bigotry against all. As the former Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom, Jonathan Sacks, said, the hate that begins with Jews never ends with Jews. Excellencies, friends, our common humanity is at the heart of the United Nations. Racism and bigotry are a violation of everything we stand for, and we are determined to fight it on all its forms. For me, this is a lifelong commitment, and for the United Nations, a foundational mission. And today is more important than ever, especially in the wake of the horrific 7 October Hamas attacks that claimed the lives of more than 1,000 Israelis and others injured many more, and resulted in the brutal seizing of hostages. Hostages that must be immediately and unconditionally released. In the last several months, we have seen outbursts of anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim bigotry around the world. Every one of us must resolve to stand up against the forces of hate, discrimination, and division. We must condemn anti-Semitism unequivocally whenever and wherever we encounter it. And I'm pleased that the High Representative of the UN Alliance of Civilizations, Miguel Moratinos, is serving as United Nations focal point to enhance global efforts to address anti-Semitism. And we must equally condemn all other forms of racism, prejudice, and religious bigotry, including anti-Muslim hatred and violence against minority Christian communities. Let us never be silent in the face of discrimination and never tolerant of intolerance. Let us speak out for human rights and the dignity of all. Let us never lose sight of each other's humanity and never let down our guard. To all who confront prejudice and persecution, I say clearly, you are not alone. The UN stands with you, and to all those past and present who have had the courage to share their stories of the Holocaust so the world can know the truth, I say thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. His Excellency, Mr. Dennis Francis, the President of the 78th session of the General Assembly, is unable to join us in person today, but we are pleased to be able to share this recorded message.
Your Excellency Gilad Erdan, Permanent Representative of Israel to the United Nations. Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, let me acknowledge in particular the Holocaust survivors who are joining us for this solemn remembrance event today. The International Holocaust Remembrance Day, 27th of January, marks 79 years since the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, the largest of the Nazi concentration and death camps. Today we honor the lives of the 6 million Jewish people, Roma, Sinti, and countless others who suffered and perished during the horrors of the Shoah. It is with profound humility that we mark this occasion in the presence and grace of those who survived this unparalleled depravity. Poignant accounts and extraordinary courage of survivors shocked the world and summoned humanity to action nearly 8 decades ago. Today, those who tragically perished and the survivors are the powerful animating force behind all we do at the United Nations to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, to promote and defend human rights, and to work relentlessly for a more just and peaceful world. It is true, as Elie Wiesel observed, that for the dead and the living, we must bear witness. Promoting the memory and education about the Holocaust is therefore essential to ensuring that the crime of genocide is never seen as either normal or justifiable in any circumstance, and therefore to work towards ensuring that it is never repeated. The harrowing stories of the survivors and those who risked their lives to save them play a central role in our collective remembrance of this dastardly episode in human history. They are stories of ordinary people who took extraordinary actions to resist unspeakable brutality. People like Joanna Eck, who sheltered Jews in her small apartment, like Irina Sendler, who smuggled children safely out of the Warsaw Ghetto, and like Jean Darman, a teacher who joined a rescue network to save Jewish children. There are countless more heroes and heroines who rose to the occasion in the face of enormous personal danger to save innocent souls from an unthinkable tragedy. They are reminders of our duty to deter, repudiate, and counter hatred and intolerance without any reserve, wherever such heinous crimes against humanity occur. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot and must not be complacent. We see an alarming surge in hate speech across the world, while rising anti-Semitism and xenophobia have stoked fears that Auschwitz is only sleeping, as Sieger Stoiker, a survivor of Roma descent, once described it. Today and every day, we must recommit to do more than just say never again. We must live our lives daily by this mantra. The Holocaust must forever be a warning to all of us to stay vigilant against widespread hatred, racism, prejudice, and intolerance, divisive and destructive views and forces that seek deliberately to dehumanize and often to demonize human beings on the most spurious of grounds. In the memory of those who were lost and in honor of those who survived, we must strive towards a common future that is safer, free from fear, and characterized by mutual respect, tolerance, and harmony. It is high time we learn to live together as equals in dignity and respect for all, by all. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and I would now like to invite His Excellency, Mr. Gilad Erdan, the permanent representative of Israel to the United Nations, to deliver his remarks.
Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, Ambassador Lipstadt, colleagues, friends, and distinguished Holocaust survivors here with us today. 64 years ago, at the trial of the arch-Nazi Adolf Eichmann, the legendary Israeli Attorney General Gideon Hausner opened the prosecution with a haunting message that has been etched into the Jewish ethos. But should he be giving his speech today, these would be his words. When I stand before you here, I am not standing alone. With me are 6 million accusers who perished in the Holocaust. And with me are the 1,200 accusers who were butchered on October 7th. With me are the 136 hostages still being held in Hamas terror tunnels. But they cannot rise to their feet and point an accusing finger, for their ashes are strewn in the fields of Auschwitz and Treblinka, in the fields of Be'eri and Kfar Aza. Their screams are not palpable from the terror tunnels under Gaza. Their blood cries out, but their voices are not heard. So I shall be their voice. From the crimes of the Nazis and their collaborators until the crimes of Hamas and radical Islam today, the genocidal ideology of exterminating the Jews has remained the same. Today is not only a day of remembrance. This day was designated to also prevent future acts of genocide, to internalize the lessons of the Holocaust, to never be silent, as silence, in the words of Elie Wiesel, encourages the tormentor, never the tormented, and indifference, not death, is the opposite of life. On October 7th, Hamas terrorists murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned families alive. They gunned down young people at a music festival as if it was Babi Yar, and turned entire communities to ash. Every decent, every moral person understands that this was an attempted genocide. We have heard the testimonies of Holocaust survivors who, once again on October 7th, had to face those who seek to wipe the Jews from the earth. Ruth Haran, an 88-year-old resident of Kibbutz Be'eri and a Holocaust survivor, described seeing the corpses of children and babies strewn across the lawns of her community. Her son was murdered. Her daughter, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren were taken hostage. She survived humanity's darkest moments, and what she experienced on October 7th was, in her own words, a genocide. Hamas Nazis came to murder Jews as if we are subhuman. Hamas came to exterminate us, and they have sworn to repeat these horrors again and again and again until Israel and the Jews are destroyed. Every Jew is murdered. Ladies and gentlemen, to this day, no UN institution has condemned the October 7th massacre. It's shocking. Even the International Court of Justice for heaven's sake, did not see it morally fitting to condemn Hamas's barbaric massacre against our children and people. This silence is unfathomable. The United Nations was founded upon the commitment to prevent atrocities, to prevent genocide, to be a living testament that never again is not just a slogan, but an action plan. Yet today the UN has become one of the weapons in the arsenal of modern-day Nazis against us. Every UN body has become weaponized against the Jewish state, exploited as an instrument to aid in the elimination of my people. How symbolic is it that on International Holocaust Remembrance Day, it was exposed that UNRWA employees took part in the massacre. The UN is not only weaponized to delegitimize our existence, but also to physically exterminate us. Contemplate this. Today of all days, the day that we commemorate the genocide of the Jewish people and swear here never again, the International Court of Justice made it clear that it won't reject outright the case of a Nazi terror organization that seeks to commit genocide against the Jewish people. It's outrageous. Every year we dedicate this day to discuss the surging Jew hatred poisoning the world. And this year, the year in which the largest number of Jews were massacred since the Holocaust, anti-Semitism has risen to heights not seen since the Nuremberg laws. We can only draw one conclusion, a sad conclusion. The UN has failed in its mission. Has failed. UN's shortcomings in combating anti-Semitism. I will not discuss the singling out of Israel at the Human Rights Council, the bias of the WHO, or all other UN bodies. It's plain and clear. If you count the number of UN resolutions and condemnations, it's obvious that Israel, the only vibrant liberal democracy in the Middle East, is the #1 threat to world peace. But we know what we are outside of this building. We know very well. And I pray here today, I pray that one day the UN will cease its indifference, cease its lies, cease siding with terrorists, that the UN will stand by Israel's side, stand by its founding ideals. We, the Jewish people, understand the meaning of genocide more than any other people. We have been persecuted for millennia, and Hitler seared the meaning of genocide into our DNA. But on October 7th, Hamas tore open that wound. On International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the day that even the ICJ proved to the world that the lessons of the Holocaust were not learned, I stand here in the name of the State of Israel, in the name of all those murdered by the Nazis and Hamas, and I swear we will not forget. Never again is now. Thank you, Dr. Barra.
I would now like to invite Her Excellency, Dr. Deborah E. Lipstadt, the United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, to deliver her remarks.
The United States General Assembly designated January 27th, the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, as International Holocaust Remembrance Day, a time to remember the 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust and the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution. We are here today to recognize the importance of commemorating this day and to recognize the extraordinary courage.
Kinder, auch die ganz Jungen, schwerste Zwangsarbeit leisten mussten, wie Straßenbau und Schützengräben aussehen. Es gab fast nichts zu essen. Kartoffelschalen waren ein Festessen. Und wenn es mal trockenes Brot gab, und es war sehr trocken, wurde es untereinander aufgeteilt. Wir litten während den ganzen Jahren unter großem Hunger und Angst, zu erfrieren oder zu ermordet werden. Ich selbst wurde Anfang 1944 im Ghetto Lublin geboren. Meine Mutter musste mich eingewickelt in ein Fetzen Tuch mit zur Arbeit nehmen und in den Wintermonaten neben sich in den Schnee legen. Es war ein Wunder, dass ich und meine engste Familie überlebt haben. Auf die Frage, wie es möglich war, 5 Jahre Lagerhaft, sagten meine Eltern, warum Nebel und Idemski Verschmende? Gott und die Mutter Gottes waren mit uns. Viele meiner Verwandten haben den Holocaust dagegen nicht überlebt. Viele wurden in Auschwitz vergast und ermordet. Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, das Ende des Krieges bedeutete für uns Sinti und Roma allerdings nicht das Ende der Ausgrenzung, der Erniedrigung, der Verfolgung. In den staatlichen Behörden der Bundesrepublik Deutschland trafen Täter, die in der NS-Zeit für die Deportation, Verfolgung unserer Familie verantwortlich waren, die Entscheidung über unsere Entschädigungsanträge. Der Antiziganismus setzte sich bruchlos in Deutschland und in Europa fort und führte zu einer rassistischen Ausgrenzung, ja einer Form von Apartheid gegen die größte Minderheit in vielen europäischen Ländern. Nur dank der mutigen Bürgerrechtsbewegung von Sinti und Roma, darunter Holocaust-Überlebende, aber auch nachfolgende Generationen, gelang es unserer Minderheit in den 70er und 80er Jahren, die Anerkennung der Nazi-Verbrechen und die Anerkennung als nationale Minderheit zu erkämpfen. Es dauerte 4 Jahrzehnte, bis der damalige deutsche Bundeskanzler Helmut Schmidt 1982 den Völkermord an Sinti und Roma völkerrechtlich anerkannte. Der deutsche Bundespräsident Frank-Walter Steinmeier bezeichnete im Jahr 2020 diesen Antiziganismus und das fortgesetzte Unrecht gegenüber Sinti und Roma nach 1945 als zweite Verfolgung und er bat Sinti und Roma um Vergebung. Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, es erfüllt mich mit großer Sorge, wenn ich heute wieder den zunehmenden Nationalismus und Rechtsextremismus in der Welt sehe. Meine Familie und ich mussten erfahren, wozu rassistischer Hass und Gewalt führen. Ich selbst habe in den 90er Jahren 2 rechtsradikale Anschläge auf meine Person und auf meine Geschäfte erlebt. Das Vermächtnis der Opfer von Auschwitz ist eine Verpflichtung und Verantwortung für alle Nationen und für die hier versammelte Weltgemeinschaft. Es geht nicht nur darum, Minderheiten wie Sinti, Roma und Juden zu schützen, es geht darum, dass wir heute mehr denn je unsere Demokratie und unseren Rechtsstaat verteidigen müssen. Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, am 2. August gedenken wir jedes Jahr der letzten 4.300 Sinti und Roma im deutschen NS-Konzentrationslager Auschwitz-Birkenau, die in dieser Nacht des Jahres 1944 trotz erbitterten Widerstand von der SS ermordet wurden. Das Europäische Parlament erklärte 2015 diesen Tag zum internationalen Holocaust-Gedenktag für Sinti und Roma. Ich appelliere an alle Mitgliedstaaten der Vereinten Nationen, den 2. August als internationalen Holocaust-Gedenktag für Sinti und Roma anzuerkennen und den diesjährigen 80. Jahrestag in der Gedenkstätte Auschwitz-Birkenau würdig zu begehen. Ich möchte vor allem junge Menschen weltweit aufrufen, die Erinnerung von uns Zeitzeugen und das Gedenken in die Zukunft zu tragen. Ich hoffe, dass Sie mit Mut und Engagement für Demokratie und gegen Antisemitismus und Antiziganismus und Antisemitismus in jeder Form von Rassismus eintreten. Ich danke Ihnen vielmals.
So much, Mr. Fields, for traveling all the way from Germany to be with us today and to share such a moving story. It is a privilege to have survivors like you share with us your experiences, and we're also grateful when the children and grandchildren of victims and survivors of the Holocaust carry on sharing their tragic family history. And thus, we are very pleased to have Dr. Petra Gelpart and her son, Mr. Patrick Gelpart, with us today. Dr. Gelpart is the granddaughter, Mr. Gelpart is the great-grandson of Helena Margita Nova and Antonin Buda Kranik, Romani Holocaust survivors. And through their music, Dr. Gelpart and Ms. Gelpart provide testimony to the experiences of their family during the Holocaust. They will perform Auschwitz, which means in Auschwitz, using elements from previously existing folk songs. Auschwitz was composed by the Auschwitz-Birkenau so-called gypsy camp by one or more Roma interned there during that time. And with the text in Romani, the song has been disseminated with a variety of verses over the decades since the war. Dr. Gelpart learned the first three verses from her maternal grandparents and great aunt, all survivors of the Holocaust.
Auschwitz Kerbaro Deodoi Beshem Ropirano Beshem Gondoline Premande Ondiste Kataruska baba hurde Meropirano usmanuke Edemuke muke Haribnaha Ani penjas Ajdevle Ante butiam entrade E cascabel mukel kere Henelake Aslofte Henelake Aslofte
Dr. Gelpart and Mr. Gelpart for that incredibly moving, stirring performance. And it is my pleasure now to invite sisters and Holocaust survivors, Dr. Edith Tenenbaum Shapiro and Ms. Selma Tenenbaum Rawson, to share with us their testimony. Dr. Shapiro's son, Mark, and Ms. Rawson's son, Barry, will accompany them. And they are joined by the violinist, Mr. Dora Nam. And as they make their way to the stage, I'll just let you know that Mr. Nam will begin by playing a composition. It's called Mein Stadtteilwelt, composed by Alexandra Olshanensky. This piece has great resonance for the Tenenbaum sisters because it reminds them of their parents. And the words to the melody speak of longing for a happier time, for their home that existed before.
3 years old in 1939 when World War II reached us in Złotów, Poland, now Złotów, Ukraine. Our mother and father, Linka and Liva Tenenbaum, were both lawyers. We lived with our father's parents above grandfather's paper goods and printing factory. Mother's mother lived nearby. We celebrated Jewish holidays and we assimilated into Polish culture. I have happy memories of our pre-war life. Guests around the candlelit table talking and singing, horse and buggy trips to the forests of the neighboring Yelachowice.
I have no memory of life before the war. First came the Russians, then the Germans, then the Russians again. Each time, bombs fell. I saw strings hanging from a plane and wondered what they were. I heard a boom. Someone scooped me up and rushed me to the cellar. I was afraid, but this became my normal. I think of myself back then as a little animal that lived in a dangerous forest. Outside are enemies, and that's the way life is. You either survive or you don't, but you have your parents to protect you. Our parents created an imaginary existence for us. We pretended to be at school and at the park. We played cards and homemade board games, and we were early and avid readers. Father taught us sign language so we could communicate when we had to be quiet.
Our friendly and neighbors.
Which still stands today, in our culture, for several days, Mother said, look at it. During the night, they claimed that the Jews would be shot and all the children will be murdered. Our parents gave us away to Christian friends.
First, I was given away without Selma because supposedly I looked less Jewish. But I didn't want to be without her, so I climbed through a window and went back to my family. The second time, both Selma and I were given away. This time, we climbed through the window together. Mother was never happy with giving us away. We were called Catholic prayers.
Father contrived to take us all with him. As to be, you didn't right. Jew free. We lived in Barker. Germans came to Detroit. Our poor neighbors lied and told us, no Jews here. Unexpectedly, Dr. Barker said, how much
And preach hit us and two more Jewish families in people who did not know us wanted us dead.
they wanted to kill us.
They wanted to kill our family.
Had they succeeded, we would not have had our husbands, our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. For love with all of our hearts.
开头一段。
We would not have done without the work.
We would not be here in this hopeful place. Perfectly
这一段站在后面。
We have seen that hatred can be very strong.
but we can
然后坐这里可以。
much, Dr. Shapiro and Ms. Rosen, for your stirring testimony and experience, and also your words of encouragement and hope. Thank you also, Mr. Na, for your evocative performance. We now ask Cantor Singer to recite the memorial prayer. Please can I ask those who can stand to stand up for this prayer.
Europa,
Thank you, Cantor Singer. Your Excellencies, dear guests, dear survivors, thank you for being with us today. And as we close, I would like to kindly ask you just to remain in your seats for a few minutes as we wait for the Secretary General and our esteemed speakers to leave the hall. Thank you.
你可以回去了，没什么事了。我还有些事，我要跟人家谈。好，你上来，跟你过来，上来我这里来，就来拍一段视频。我在站在这里啊，你在第六排啊，2楼第6排。刚才你没来过吗？你看过来，我站着还就走上来就是了嘛。你看见我站着吗？拿摄像机，你在哪里啊？我站在走廊啊，你刚才不是说不能拍？你反正走过来了，直接走上来，顺着过道走上来。走过来，不是走下来。你在哪里啊？在左边过道，左边过道，左边过道，左边过道你不知道？左边二大道，你是在那台下吗？在哪里？在右边那边。 我看见你了，过来过来，我看见你了，过来，再往这边走，再往这边走，往左边这边走。
他看到了。
过来这边。啊，这里。
没有，我还有点紧张。
赶快，等一下人家会催，知道吧？会赶我们走。
我就拿着走，拿着说嘛。
不是第一段你现在背不出来，第一段背一下，然后其他你再看。
你的帽子掉了。
哦。
说几句话，很荣幸今天来到这个大厅参加拍摄活动，来。
啊？
很荣幸，我今天能够作为一个名人媒体记者，站在这里人大会厅参加拍摄活动，以后写出来报道是你写的，
为嘛？
站在这里，
预习一下，先预习一下。
我叫，
还要介
那不叫什么了？
啊，
介绍你自己，赶快，人家我还要给他拍了。
啊，
我是
Roy。欧阳，
名人媒体记者，
我是名人媒体记者。
今天很荣幸，能够参加这个联大会议厅国际纪念日，大屠杀国际纪念日，幸存者纪念日活动啊！这个你刚才不是看了吗？好，亮相一下，然后这个新闻稿都是你写的，知道吧？
今天很荣幸能参加。
一会儿怎么样？有时间聊吗？等会儿我现在先。
哎，你们先聊可以，聊我们这边。
要不4楼？那咖啡厅，这后来咖啡厅，后来downstairs。出去。咱们聊聊。
我跟你讲，一会儿我先走。我有事情，我过来跟你讲。
你介绍我就像你看的那站下面。我给你拍了，你就有什么都有，你还自己拍。啊，开始说。
大家好，我是名人媒体摄影记者 Roy， 今天很荣幸能够来联合国
参加国际大屠杀幸存者国际纪念日。
国际
大屠杀
幸存者
国际纪念日。
幸存者。
国际大屠杀
幸存者纪念日。
国际大屠杀幸存者纪念日。
大屠杀幸存者国际纪念日。大屠杀幸存者国际纪念日。啊，重新说起。
大屠杀幸存者。
我是 Roy， 名人媒体记者。大家好，我是 Roy。好，开始。
大家好，我是 Roy， 是名人媒体摄影记者。今天很荣幸能来到联合国参加国际大屠杀幸存者纪念日。
拍摄报道活动。
拍摄报道活动。
就行了。好，再删一遍。现在记住了。
好，大家好，我叫 Roy。名人媒体摄影记者，今天很荣幸能够参加国际大屠杀幸存者纪念日报道。
好，再说一遍，大声一点。大屠杀放前面，国际大屠杀幸存者国际纪念日啊。
国际大屠杀幸存者国际纪念日
啊，拍摄报道活动。
拍摄报道。
啊。我是 Roy， 名人媒体记者。好，开始。
好，大家好，我是 Roy， 名人媒体摄影记者。今天很荣幸能来到联合国参加国际大屠杀幸存者纪念日活动，拍摄报道。
OK， 行了，你就把国际放前面。 大屠杀先来，没关系，反正好，你来。
还有，
你来。
我这个还有点记不住，
国际大
我要拿着看一下的。
你这里还开着？
我这直播，
直播还开着，赶快关掉了。